Today we are really excited to have a special discussion on Armenian women in history. My name is Ani Hovhannisyan. I am the founder of the Young Leaders School of HyeConnect and a coordinator at Armenia Academy. I'm super excited to be facilitating today's special event on HyeConnect. As you may already know, HyeConnect is a virtual Armenian platform that aims to unite, engage, and empower Armenians worldwide. It provides a platform for all of us to connect, first of all, and then collaborate, strengthening our ties as a global nation. I like personally to think of HyeConnect as a blend of LinkedIn and Facebook, but even more because here we can create projects, we can start forums, we can manage tasks, and so much more. So today we have an inspiring session ahead as we present Armenian Wonderwomen. Let's accept Hachik. It's a new children's book that highlights the remarkable lives of 37 Armenian wonderful women, both historical and contemporary. These women have made significant contributions in various fields, but somehow they have been left in the shadow and overlooked in mainstream history. So the book features extraordinary lives of these women, such as Anita Conti, Diana Apgar, Khatunya Puntian, as well as some contemporary women who break stereotypes and pursue boldly their dreams. So now let's dive into the heart of today's session. We are privileged to have today with us the co-authors of Armenian Wonderwomen, the wonderful Elmira, Ayvazyan, and Gayane Aghabalyan, who will be sharing their insights on the book, its inspiration, and also its impact. So here's what to expect. First, we will hear from our esteemed co-authors, and they will present the book. It will last approximately 20 minutes, and then following that, we will have a Q&A session. And here you will have the opportunity to ask your questions, to engage with the speakers, and also share your thoughts. So please be active and join in. Now, dear Elmira and Gayane, the stage is yours. Please introduce yourself first and share your insights on Armenian Wonderwomen.
Thank you very much, Anijan, for the lovely introductions, and thank you, HyeConnect, for having us, for trusting us to kick off your series of events dedicated to Women's History Month. My name is Gayane. Again, as mentioned, I'm one of the co-authors of Armenian Wonderwomen. Outside of the book, my work is mainly in education and child protection. I teach at the American University of Armenia, and I work for several nonprofits across the country on their child protection, education, and community development projects. And children's literature is a big passion of mine. Outside of Armenian Wonderwomen, I have 3 other books, which are actually a series of books, each dedicated to a person with disability and telling their life story to younger audiences, 3 and up. Elma, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll jump to our presentation.
Yes. Hello, everyone. As Gayane has said, it's a big pleasure to be with you tonight, and we're very excited to share our work and journey with you. My name is Elmira Ayvazyan. I'm originally from HyeConnect. I am currently working as a product manager at an Armenian IT company, and I'm continuing my education at the University of Bordeaux. Gender equality, feminism, environmentalism, these are topics that are very close to my heart, and working on this book has been a huge platform and opportunity for me to explore these topics and learn for myself, thanks to the amazing people I had a chance to work with, and also hopefully pass some knowledge to others as well. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start talking about Armenian Wonderwomen, both the book and the Wonderwomen. Could someone please say if they can see my screen or not, just to double check?
We can see it.
Great, excellent. We're going to walk you through the history of writing the book, some of the things that we've already achieved, and then also share some insights and details of stories that we found fascinating, both in terms of our research and how we got to these women and found out more about them, and also some details about their lives that you may not be familiar with. I was 21 years old when I first learned about Gayane Abgar, and she's one of those women whose name is a lot more frequent in our everyday life. There is now a street, if not a square, named after her. I know they're planning to dedicate a statue to her. Her name's being mentioned every time we celebrate May 28th, but there was a time that even her name was not as common. And that's definitely the case for at least my all 12 years of my education, and then 2 more years at the university. I remember first learning about her when I was a junior student at the American University of Armenia, and learning about her sort of raised the question in me of what other women are there that we don't know about. It was sort of this prompt to start thinking, but where are the women in our history? And Elma and I, we studied at the same university together, and at some point, most of our lunch breaks and most of our time together started being around this issue. How come we don't learn about women's history? How come we're not able to recall the names of women artists and writers and scientists as quickly as we're able to name their male counterparts? And we knew that it's not because they don't exist, because at this point, right after Gayane Abgar, one by one, thanks to the wonderful work of our teachers at AUA, namely Maria Titizyan was the first one to introduce us to Gayane Abgar, but then Dr. Melissa Bilal, Dr. Huri Gatarian, and then one by one we started discovering these names, and we couldn't sit and stay quiet and calm with the fact that these names are not as well known. And we wanted to do something about it. Another part of our conversation was revolved around gender stereotypes. As young women in Armenia, growing up in different parts, Elmira, she said she's from Echmiadzin, I'm from Gyumri, and then we both ended up in Yerevan. We both experienced our fair share of stereotypes and barriers because of our gender. One of the things that stood out most was this arbitrary division in what you can and cannot be if you are of a particular sex, right? It's not even only about being a girl. Boys have their fair share of problems connected to their gender. So all of these conversations came together and around and our why started to form. We started realizing the big lack of representation of women in Armenian history and literature textbooks. They're also absent from the cultural scene. There are very few streets named after women. There are no dedicated statues honoring prominent Armenian women. We do have statues that are dedicated to women, but if you think about it, they're all these nameless figures, and most of them revolve around motherhood, and and motherhood is an amazing thing. It's a job on and of itself, but again, there are a lot of prominent women out there who deserve to be honored in this way as well. And we came to realize that the few names that we do know, and the 2 names that came up the most were Sose Mairik and Silva Kaputikian, revolved around either their marriage. In history textbooks, you learn about queens only for marriage for political reasons, and then the themes of motherhood, right? Sose Mairik even has her nickname around that. And then Silva Kaputikian's poems that we do learn are about either motherhood or your love of homeland, which is again wrapped around the concept of motherhood. So this was the why that back in 2019, February 5th of 2019, drove us to start Armenian Wonderwomen. It did not have a name back then. It was just a passion project among the two of us and two of our friends who started a journey with us to do something to change this picture. Around this time, we also came across what you see in your screens right now. It was a series of books sold in one of the most popular bookstore chains. And these books were Professions for Boys and Professions for Girls. And we thought to ourselves that if children are our future, then what is our future reading? What is it that they're consuming? So all of these different things that in our head seemed not so related all of a sudden merged, and that these pieces of puzzles came together, and we figured out that if you always hear, if you want to be the change that you want to see, as cliche as it sounds, we decided to go after that. So we followed the model of a book called Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. We appreciated the style and the concept, so we decided to do something similar for Armenian women. And the image that you see on your screen that depicts Gayane was our first prototype, so to speak. Back then, the running title of the project was The Female Powerhouse of Armenia, which then evolved to Armenian Wonderwomen. We launched a small fundraising campaign on September 1st, 2019, and we completed it successfully in the next month and a half, and we started to work. Very naively, we thought that we would have the book ready to go by June 1st of 2020. But of course, because of COVID and also the scope of the work that we didn't particularly imagine, it ended up taking longer. With that being said, what we aim to do with the book, the goal of Armenian Wonderwomen, the book and the larger initiative, is to shed light on figures who were excluded from our history and our collective memory. We want to tell their stories, to break the silence around them, and to pay tribute to these figures, which is very, very long overdue. And alongside the stories of historical women, we want to give praise to contemporary Wonder Women who right here, right now, are doing incredible work, challenging stereotypes and doing what they believe in. We want to breach these stories and honor the women of the past and give voice to women today who so bravely do what they love and believe in. And we don't want that acknowledgement to be post-mortem either. We want to appreciate them right now and right here.
Okay. Now I will start talking a little bit about the technical aspects of the book. Well, as you might already know, Armenian Wonderwomen is a children's book, and it is featuring the stories of 37 historical and contemporary women from diverse backgrounds. It is available in Eastern Armenian, Western Armenian, and English. Even though we have already mentioned both Gayane and I were born and raised and had our educations in Armenia, so we were predominantly exposed to Eastern Armenian, especially in university when we had a chance to study and have Western Armenian professors and have students from who were Western Armenian. It was really the time when we realized what is the importance of this language in our history, in our culture. So right after deciding to work on the book, one of the very first decisions that we have made about it was that it has to be available also in Western Armenian to contribute to the children's literature in Western Armenian, to the literature, and also in a way to pay a tribute to the women who spoke this language and were featured in the book. So it was a way of paying tribute to them as well. The target readership of the book is 10 plus years old. However, younger people can also read it. We recommend to do it with the guidance of an adult. And also adults can also read the book and enjoy it, since everything in the book is factually correct. It is based on a thorough research, and it can be a good source of information and a way of discovering these stories, which we didn't have a chance to do in earlier stages of our life. Now, one of the most frequently asked questions is how we chose the list of the women in the book. We had a few criteria. Number one was the diversity of professions. Very often we talk about only a limited set of professions, forgetting some others which have a big contribution to the society. And I'm not even talking about the professions without which we could technically not survive, but we do not appreciate them enough. So in this book, we try to give a voice and share the stories of all the women who do what they're passionate about, what they love, and are such big part of the well-being of the society as a whole. We also tried to include women from different parts of the world, even though all of them are ethnically Armenian. They are from different countries, and this way we wanted to make them as relatable to the reader as possible. And as we have mentioned multiple times, we had historical and contemporary women, which was yet again an opportunity to not only learn about our history, cherish our culture and tradition, but also see and appreciate the ones who are challenging the status quo, breaking stereotypes, and doing the impossible in this day and age. So maybe we should start seeing and appreciating them as well. The writing of the book, yes, it didn't take us a few months. It took 4 years to write it. And those 4 years were very much eventful, to say the least, both in our personal lives and also the things that have been happening around the world. In 2020, alone, we had global pandemic, we had the war in Armenia. So these events have been leading us to have some conversations, very honest conversations, where we have often sat down and said, okay, is this even relevant? Like, people are fighting for their lives, people are dying. Is gender equality the time to speak, or the topics that we're touching upon through this book, is it the time to do it? And whenever we were thinking about this, we realized that yes, actually, these tragic events could have had a little bit maybe different resolutions if almost half of the population had the opportunity to use their full potentials. So hopefully we can give this platform to the people to use their full potential. So this is not only important for women, but for the society as a whole. Now I will talk about the research process. The research process has been a long but also a very beautiful process. For the historical women, we have been spending a lot of time in the archives. We have had the privilege of having interviews with biographers, family members, friends of the historical women, as well as historians. We have spent months, or actually even years, of fact-checking and connecting the dots with the amazing Dr. Huri Gatarian, Dr. Melissa Bilal, as well as Dr. Lerna Akçamoglu and Dr. Robert Sukyasyan. And plus, we have been working with educators, children's psychologists, to make sure that the information that we find and we present in the book is comprehensive enough for the reader. Because since it's a children's book, we try to fit it in one page, but we can write huge books about each one of these women, since they have all been so amazing. And for the contemporary women, we had a big privilege of interviewing each and every one of these women. This is one of our favorite photos. It was taken in 2022 on March 21st on the book launch event. The woman holding the book is Maxima Petrosyan. She is a farmer who is holding her own story in the book, and the two women in the background are Naira and Mariam Moghdousyan's, amazing artists. So we had, as I said, we had the privilege of interviewing all the contemporary women in the book. We have also made sure that they are the ones approving and signing off the stories and the illustrations, which was very important for us, but also a challenge in a way, because when your story is being put in public, you try to pay attention to as many details as possible. So all of that takes a lot of time and effort and energy to adjust, and we try to respect that as much as possible. As far as the historical women are concerned, now we will dive into some examples to give you an idea of what the work has entailed. I will start from the example of Anita Conti Karagocyan. To put it very shortly, she is an oceanographer, French-Armenian oceanographer. To me, being an oceanographer is a big deal already, but this woman, she was such a powerhouse, and she was so much more than that. I would like to list a few like bullet points in terms of things that she has done for you to imagine the scale of her work. She has undertaken projects like demining oceans during World War II, so removing the mines, the bombs from the ocean. She has saved thousands of Africans and French soldiers by fishing strategies which respected the environment, but also saved these people from protein deficiency and hunger. She has also made a huge impact in the science of oceanography. She has documented a huge part of her work, which has been a resource for future studies. For example, she has taken 40,000 photographs from her journeys in different parts of the world. And also, she is one of the first people to ever speak about overfishing, pollution, and projected other environmental disasters that we have started to face today. In this photo, in this screen on the left side, you can see Anita Conti's adopted son, Laurent Conti. And I found him in a short interview, actually in French, where he was speaking about Anita Conti. And after that, the very naive self of me decided to just find him on Facebook. I found him on Facebook, messaged him like, hey, my friend and I are working on this project. Would you be interested in doing some short interview where you would share about the life and work of Anita Conti? Well, the interview, he agreed to do it, fortunately for us. Unfortunately for us, he spoke only French, which we didn't speak. So, but we couldn't miss this opportunity. So I reached out to my husband's cousin, whom I have never met, and literally the first interaction with him that I had was, can you please translate an interview with him? And luckily he agreed, and he did. And the short interview that we were expecting turned out into a beautiful few hours of conversation about her work. And he not only shared information, but also some huge parts of her archive. Here you can see, for example, some documents, some diaries, and even sketches that Anita has made throughout her journeys. On the left corner, you can see the screenshot, a small, teeny tiny glimpse of thousands of photographs that she has taken around the world. And Mr. Laurent Conti was kind enough to share a big part of it with us, and also her belongings that he has saved. So suddenly from knowing very little, just a paragraph about this woman, it felt like we knew, I mean, obviously not everything, but a lot about her. Another example is Louisette Texe, and her Armenian name is Ani Hovhannisyan. She is also French-Armenian. She was a car racer and a survivor of the Armenian genocide. Louisette Texe, she is a fascinating woman who, as I said, she survived from the Armenian genocide, losing her entire family. And after moving from country to country, from orphanage to orphanage, she ended up in France. And in France, she after leaving the orphanage, she became a dancer. After saving the money from dancing, she created her own clothing business. And she actually is one of the first people to sell jeans for women in ever. And you may say, okay, what does this woman have to do with car racing? Well, actually, when she was in her 40s, she went to watch a car race with her friend. And after that, she really liked the sport, and she decided to start racing at the age of 40, which is the age where most of the athletes retire. Obviously, at the beginning, her results were not great, but Well, you guessed it, she has tried hard enough to become one of the best in the sport. And back then there were such few women in the sport that she was also racing with men. And there are some stories of how, because they hated her winning so much, put some heavy things in her trunks to slow her down. But she was unstoppable, let's say. And I really want to highlight that racing cars back then was not an easy task. I mean, it's not an easy task even now, but back then these cars were so heavy and so difficult to manage that it took also not only a big mental strength, but also physical strength to navigate through these journeys. And this photo on the right is my all-time favorite photo. She did her last race in her mid-80s in Kenya, and the man on the left, on her left, is her grandson. So this is the last time she did her race, and she got retired in her 90s, and that's when she stopped her clothing business as well. Actually, when we were writing her story, she was still alive. She passed away a few years ago at the age of 108. But unfortunately, she lost her memory. But we were lucky enough to connect with her biographer, who has passed all of this information. Actually, it's so fascinating that after writing her story, we only then we found out that she was in the Protaser orphanage, which in fact was founded by another woman that is featured in our book. And this photograph that you see is the photograph of her in the orphanage, and she's the girl where you see the circle around her head. And actually we have some photographs where we're trying to understand if actually the two women from the book are in the same photograph, without actually realizing that they would eventually end up in the same book, honoring their lives. But yes, it's always beautiful, and this is like an alive process of constantly finding new things and connecting the dots.
Another woman that we wanted to share with you today is Khatun Yapujan, who was a freedom fighter during the Armenian genocide. So we repeatedly mentioned, it took us 4 years to write the book, and in that 4 years we only took a very short amount of time off. Every other second and day has been spent on writing the book, and 37 women, half of them contemporary, half of them historical. So for half it meant detailed interviews and writing and rewriting. For historical women, it meant a lot of research. And in some cases, we relied on the wonderful work of the biographers, like in Louise's case, or the scholars who studied their work in such detail. So we had information that was already fact-checked and there for us to study. Even that requires a lot of reading and making connections and trying to decide which part of the story should be told. Condensing all of that information into one page was the biggest challenge. But then there were also women that we were one of the first people, if not the first, who tried to obtain any information about these women, and Khatun was one of those. She was featured in a project called Daring Armenian Women, and her name is in the repositories that are about freedom fighters. So, and we wanted to have freedom fighters to shed light on the women's involvement in that particular part of our history and show that it wasn't only so Semitic there. So we saw her name and we did some preliminary research on her, and then our process was the following. We shortlisted, we settled on the final list, and then we started doing the research. And once the research was done, the first version of the story was written, edited, and then we would pass the story to the illustrators to do the illustrations for these women. And then we had detailed notes of what the illustration should look like. We aimed for a realistic illustration so that if a child or anyone who's reading it would see the actual picture, the connection is instant. Somehow, in some way, Khatun's illustration was done before her story was finalized. And when we were going through our, once again, rewriting the stories, we figured out that we didn't particularly like the version of Khatun's story. We needed to rewrite, which meant going back to the research. But again, somehow everything that was written, we were looking at the links that we've used previously, all that information was gone, as if and even that what was written based off of two links. One was, I believe, in the Genocide Museum and Institute's website. Another one was like a brief article, and I believe that article was in French. And then no information. We had two options. Either we could forget about Khatun, have another woman and move on, or not even replace her, just move on. Or to keep going. But we really, there was something in her illustration, and I don't know if you can feel that off of the screen or you can relate to it, but there was something about the illustration and the photo that you see now on your screen that really made us want to explore more. There was something, I don't know. It's very hard to find words for when things like this happen. But we knew we had to keep on looking for. And I'm sorry that the way the Google Meet is set up is I don't see the audience, but I'm assuming we have a lot of diasporans in our audience. And as you can imagine, with Western Armenian at play, the number of ways that Khatun's name could potentially be written was endless. And her last name is Yapujyan. So at the complexity of the last name, and we had an impossible task to find this woman. It took us 2 years of searching and not giving up until one of our good friends, genocide studies scholar, Dr. Robert Sukasyan, found her husband's ticket to the US, and from there we figured that maybe she changed her last name to her husband's last name, which was a common practice. So that sort of gave us a hint into that. So you can see that document here. We knew that she was married to a Heri Bazaryan, and then we started looking her with the last name Bazaryan, and that gave us access to some of the resources. And then our friends in the US, again, a big thank you to Dr. Melissa Bilal and to Harut for looking at these repositories, and one by one, once we narrowed down where she was from, we figured out that she was from Fandajag, which is near Marash. We started looking at the sources that concerned Fandajag, started sort of cross-referencing, looking at the last names, and somehow in the span of a month, we had all this information about Khatun, who was now Bazaryan. To our surprise, her name was turned into a Hatun, in some cases even Hotun, so Hatoon. That was one of the reasons that we couldn't find anything about her. So she was from a village called Fandajak near Marash, and she joined the movement when she was only 16 years old. Lost most of her family members. She was a fierce fighter, so much so that she was on the wanted list by the Ottoman Empire. She was wanted dead or alive. She had to escape several times. She even spent several days under dead bodies to escape, to be able to leave. But then she also couldn't just sit like that, so she joined the orphan rescue team. So she would go and rescue orphans and bring them and reunite them with their families. She's done some amazing work in the women's shelter. She fought in Hama Homes, which was one of the worst places to be at the time. Fascinating figure, really rich history. And then we see that the second that she goes to the US, the narrative around her changes, and one of the pieces that we found about her was her growing, and what you can see on your screens now is her growing a 43-inch long zucchini. So a squash, a squash, and then she's giving an interview about how, she was watering her plants and then how she was taking care of them. And that sort of really surprised us to see this shift in narrative. And then now that we knew that she became a Hatun Bazaryan, we found this article on Mirror Spectator about her shish kebab recipe, which was written by her grandson, Mr. John Kubashian. And again, thank you to the invention of Facebook. We were able to find him there, and we wrote him a message, not thinking that he will respond. But luckily, there's a generation out there who still uses the platform. And we said, hey, very random, but we are doing research on your grandmother. Would you be willing to talk to us? And then we were so happy that he actually got back to us, and he connected us with also his sister, Khatun's granddaughter. They are Khatun's daughter's children. So she was their maternal grandmother. And I believe it was in 2021 or 22 that we did our interview with them, when we got all of this firsthand information about this woman that we were looking for at that point already 2.5 years. Things like how she used to make eggs for them, and how she was taking care of her garden, all of this news. And then they also shared their family archives with us. As you can see, this is actually her grandchildren, her and her daughter. The other things that we found was this article titled "To Fresno, She Was a Kindly Grandmother. Turks Knew Another Hatun," and that was detailing her involvement in the resistance movement. So one by one, her story became more complete for us, but it completed fully last year. Last year we got the chance to do a book tour across the US, and we went to California. Oh yeah, she ended up in Fresno. I did mention that. So she had ended up in Fresno, and we knew that we were going to be driving from San Francisco to LA, and we said, hey, you know what's on the way? Fresno. We reached out to Mr. John again and said, again, would you be willing to meet with us? Because it would be like a full circle moment. And to our surprise, he said yes. And he said, you know what, you absolutely have to stay the day with me. And he's a professional chef. And he said, what do you want me to, what do you want for dinner? And we shamelessly said, would you by any chance be willing to make the shish kebab with her recipe? He said, of course. The images that you see are from our time with Mr. Kubashian. The other thing that we really wanted to do was to pay our tribute to Khatun, and she's buried in Fresno. We asked to go and see, go to the cemetery and pay our respects to her. So this is a photograph from her graveyard in Fresno. So one of the blessings of this project has been to get to know these women some more intimately than the others, but sort of developing this relationship with women that we've never met, will never meet. But there's something very, very special in getting to know their stories and getting and having the honor to tell their stories.
Well, as Gayane mentioned, we were doing a book tour in the US last year, and throughout this tour, yes, we had a wonderful, a big pleasure to meet Mr. John, but also we had a chance to connect with other relatives of the historical figures featured in the book, one of them being Ani Hovhannisyan, who is the great-granddaughter of Diana Abgar, and she's actually one of the main people who has been contributing into rediscovering Diana Abgar's story. And just to set the scene, we have been in touch with Ani Hovhannisyan throughout, only within the scope of her Diana Abgar story. We didn't know each other very well, and whatever work we have done together was very like work oriented, let's say. But then whenever we connected with her and told her that we are going to Fresno, she was not only kind enough to meet us, but she even insisted on us staying in her house, and she has been a wonderful host who has been supporting us throughout our crazy schedule in San Francisco. And yeah, and actually hearing first-hand stories about Diana Abgar, about her, some casual family stuff, it was both creating a little bit of a dissonance, because sometimes you just idealize these people in your head, and then you hear some simple everyday life stories about them. So it was truly a beautiful experience. And then we were also very lucky to learn about Mimi Malayan as well, because she herself was a true Wonder Woman. So it was a beautiful journey. In San Francisco, we were also very lucky to meet one of the contemporary women, Dr. Teneb Karens, who is a scientist who is working. She's a microbiologist who has dedicated her studies, especially in to the biodiversity of Antarctica. Again, we have only met her via Zoom. We had different interactions with her only within the scope of the story and the illustration. And then it was such a huge surprise and pleasure to see her during one of our events in San Francisco. So it was truly a dream come true kind of moment for us. Well, now, as you may tell, finding and especially learning about the journeys that these women have gone through has taken a lot of time from us. And we really don't wish that people who are interested in these women take 4 years to study them and understand their stories. This is why we are working on a website, armenianwonderwomen.com, where we are making all of this information that we have accessible. So it's a Google search away, not archive work or stalking people on Facebook. So it's information that is accessible for everyone. It is still a work in progress. So we're constantly trying to add more women's biographies in the website, and also making as much of the archives that we have available on the website as possible. Hopefully in the near future, you will see more stories, more women, more biographies, as well as in more languages, since it is currently available only in Eastern Armenian.
And then one last thing, we know we're already a bit over time, but just one last story, because again, we're in Women's History Month, and then March 8th, the beginning of the month, is often misunderstood and misrepresented. It became a holiday about gifts and flowers. It has never intended to be that, and we've certainly made progress in women's rights, but there's still a long way to go. And this is a bit of a significant source. Serpui Jusab is the first woman featured in our book, and she's the founder of the protested HyeConnect. Actually started with her mother, and then she continued the work, and she advocated for women's rights, to girls' rights and access to education. So opening schools for them across the Ottoman Empire. Huge legacy, huge work. And when I picked up the first copy of Armenian Wonderwomen, it was laying on the table, and my dad picked it up and started reading, and it's the first story, so he's reading that. And about an hour before all of that, we were talking about a girl we knew who was forced not to continue her education because in her family's eyes, 20 was the perfect age to get married, so that should be her top priority. And we were talking about how unfair that is. And when my dad was reading Serpui Jusab's story, he looked at me and he said, look, nothing has changed since her time. Jusab lived and worked in late 19th century, and as much as I wanted to disagree with my father and say, no, we made progress, I took a moment and I realized that he's not entirely wrong. As much progress as we made, actually, when we say these women were ahead of their time, actually we are very behind ours. They have already done the work, and we need to know their legacy, we need to know our history, and we need to understand how much the generation and the generation before them has fought for us to have that right, and it should not be taken for granted. The fight is not over, and Armenian Wonderwomen, the book and our research is one of the ways to contribute to this. Thank you very much for your patience and for listening to us. We've dedicated our book to those who are willing to change, to imagine the impossible, to follow their dream, to live in equality, justice, and freedom. And we stand by this every single day, and it's becoming more and more relevant than ever. This is where you can find us. We're on across social media platforms. Our website is armenian.wonderwomen.com. I think we are open to your questions. I will stop sharing so I can see the audience. Apologies, we took more time than we should have, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much for your work, for your dedication, and thank you everyone for your active participation, also for your insights. So we appreciate your participation very much and looking forward to staying connected. Thank you.